Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know, my name is Faith and thank you so much for watching. So in case you couldn't tell, there are empty spaces behind me. That is because today we're going through my entire physical TBR. So before we get into anything, I would like to say I film these on my iPhone and normally I just do the normal video mode, but today I'm trying the cinematic mode to see if it makes it look more aesthetic, I guess. So the background's a little blurred, and in case anyone is curious and can't tell because the background is blurry, I have read 18 books so far this year. I'm doing pretty good, I think. I'm almost halfway to my goal and the year is not even halfway over yet. I own about 240 books total and I have about 65 unread. So that's roughly 25%, a little over. I think that's pretty good because I see a lot of people with like 200 plus unread books. Granted, I don't know how many total books they have, so it could come out to be about the same. But 65 unread, I think that's pretty good. That being said, I do want it to get way below 65. So other than books I've already pre-ordered, and if one of my favorite authors announces a new book, which I will be buying, I'm going on a book buying ban, which I've actually been pretty good about already. I think I've only bought one or two books maybe that weren't already pre-ordered or anything. I think I'm doing pretty good so far. But like I said, I would like to get it below 65, preferably 40 and below at least. There are some books that I have had for a long time that I still haven't read. I don't know why, I just haven't gotten around to it. But enough about that, let's get into it. We're gonna start with my sci-fi TBR, Jurassic Park and The Lost World. I actually started Jurassic Park a few years ago. I'm not sure why I never finished it. I can see the bookmark is still in there and I got to page 126. Like I said, I'm not really sure why I never finished it because I love the movie and I did like what I read of the book. So not sure what I was thinking there. I will definitely get it read this summer. My next book is also a Michael Crichton book. It's State of Fear. I have no idea what it's about. Honestly, I only wanted to read it because it's Michael Crichton and he wrote Jurassic Park, even though I've never read a Michael Crichton book, but it is on my list to read. Next up is Here and Now and Then by Mike Chen. This book is about time travel, and to my understanding, he goes back to the past and gets stranded there and he starts a new family there, but then these people come back to bring him back to the future and he has to decide whether he wants to stay with his current family who he's been living with for about 20 years, I think, or go back to his original family who he hasn't seen in 2 decades almost. I think the premise sounds really good. I am really excited to read this. I talked about this one a bit in my last video, Dune. I got to page 26 and I think that took me like 2 hours to read. I don't know why. This book was so hard to read for me. Also mentioned in my last video, I might just have to try listening to the audiobook of this because I do really want to read it. It's just, it was a struggle and I'm not sure if it was just the timing of when I read it or what, but I'll definitely try it again, and if I can't get through it, I will for sure listen to the audiobook. Last up on my sci-fi TBR is The Paleontologist. It's about a paleontologist, who goes back to his hometown and the museum there where his sister was kidnapped. And to my understanding, it's a paranormal thriller as well. And I love dinosaurs, I love ghost stories, I love paleontology, so I'm really excited to read this. So now we're going to move into my horror thriller TBR. First up, we have Stalker by Faye Kellerman. It's about a LAPD detective who believes somebody is stalking her and coming and going inside of her house without her knowledge. And I love stories like this psychological thriller type. I don't know why, because they genuinely freak me out and make me think that I'm being stalked and stuff. So I don't really know why, but I just love books like this. Next up is Dragon Teeth by Michael Crichton. This might lean more towards sci-fi, but when I looked it up, it just said thriller, so that's why I put it with my horror and thriller. It's about a student who goes on this dig with a paleontologist, and this student is actually spying on this paleontologist for his nemesis, so the paleontologist leaves him in the desert and it just goes from there, I guess. I honestly have no idea if this next book is a thriller, horror, mystery, or what, but The Silent Patient, I have heard incredibly mixed things about this. Some people say it's terrible, some people say it's terrible until the end, some people say the entire thing was really good. I'll have to read it and make an opinion for myself. Not sure when that will be, and of course I can't have a horror thriller TBR without the king of horror, Stephen King. This is Insomnia. I have no idea what this is about. I saw it at an antique store for like $2. This fat of a book, hardcover for $2, was a steal. Never read a Stephen King book. She's pretty thick, not sure when I'll get to it. And another Stephen King book, It. I actually was gonna start this book a while ago, but then I saw somewhere there's an orgy scene between the children at the end, and that is disgusting, and that really put me off on reading this, so that's why I have not read this book yet. And the last Stephen King book, The Institute, it's about this boy whose parents were murdered, and the people who murdered them kidnap him and take him to the Institute. What happens there, I don't know, but it's Stephen King, so it's probably not anything good. Moving on to the mystery genre, we have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Bestie Ellie got this for me for my birthday. She also read it recently and said that it was really good. Most of the books she reads, I read them as well, and I like them. So if she liked it, I'm sure I will like it as well. And then we have And There He Kept Her. It's about these two people who break into this house and uncover the house owner's secret that he's been keeping. What the secret is, I have no idea. But I've watched multiple movies with that premise, and I've liked all of them, so I'm sure that I'll like this book as well. And then we have The Cousins. This is another book that I started to read and just didn't finish it. What I read I liked. Again, I think it was just more of the timing when I read it. I couldn't really get into it at the time, and I'm not too sure what it's about. I don't know if it's a murder mystery or what, but I'm excited to find out. Next up is Guess Who. When I read the summary, it reminded me of an escape room, but real. This man wakes up in a hotel room chained to a bed, and there's 5 other people there with him. They discover a body in the bathtub, and one of the people in the room is the killer, and they have 3 hours to find out who it is. The last mystery books are also a series, Hangman and Just One Bite. I'm not fully sure which one comes first. I also think these lean a bit into the horror thriller category. They follow an FBI detective who's solving a case. On the dust jacket, it also says for fans of Dexter and Hannibal. I've never seen either, but I read the description and it sounded good. Moving on to my fantasy reads, we have all of the Game of Thrones books. The main reason that I haven't read those yet is because I don't believe that George R.R. Martin will ever publish that last book, and I do not want to read an incomplete series, especially with how this TV show ended. Not the best ending. I don't want to be just left on this cliffhanger and then have that be the end of the series. But I loved the show, and I've heard they're significantly better than the show, so I know if I read them, I would love them. It's just, he's got to get that last book out. Another fantasy series I haven't read, which technically leans more into mythology, is the Heroes of Olympus books by Rick Riordan. Don't ask me why I haven't read these ones yet, because I don't know. I read the entire Percy Jackson series a couple summers ago, and I loved it. I was debating on reading this right after, but at the time I just needed a break from series, so I didn't read them, and then I've just never gotten back around to them. And going with those, I also have 2 short story novella type books. I don't know if when you're supposed to read them, which is why I haven't read them yet. The green one says Heroes of Olympus on it, so I'm assuming they're both supposed to be read sometime while you're reading the Heroes of Olympus books. And another series, because let's face it, a lot of fantasy books are series. We have 5 Broken Blades and 4 Ruined Realms. Again, these lean a bit more into mythology than fantasy, because to my understanding, they're based on Korean mythology. And I have heard that it's a pretty good book. I just haven't gotten around to reading it yet, just like the rest of these books. Then we have The Hurricane Wars, another book that I've also heard is really good, and I want to say the second book recently came out, so I need to read this so that I can read that one. And then you'll never guess, but we have another series. This is the first book, The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I think the series is called Crowns of Neaxia. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I honestly have no idea. Another book that I've heard is really good, and there's vampires. Are you kidding me? Vampires are hot. So very excited to read this. Then we have a book that got really popular a few months ago, Quicksilver, another book that I've heard a lot of mixed things about, so I'm not too sure if I'll like it, but based on the things I've heard, I feel like I will. We'll see when we read it. Then we have The Cruel Prince, another series. I have tried to read this book twice now, and like I said in my last video, I'll try it again. If the third time I just can't get into it, then it's just not for me, and I will be getting rid of it. Next up is Heartless. It's an older book talk book. To my knowledge, it's a backstory of the Queen of Hearts, and I loved Alice in Wonderland. However, I have tried to read books before about the backstory of the villain, and I haven't really liked any of them, so we'll see if I like this. I'm hoping I will, but we'll see when we get to it. Last up for fantasy is The Song of Achilles. Most of the things I've heard about this book are good things, and it is based around Greek mythology, which I love to read about, so yeah. And then I've got a few nonfiction books that I haven't read. I honestly don't really like nonfiction, which is the biggest reason I haven't read any of these yet. First up, we have Conversations with the Killer, Ted Bundy. I got this right after that Ted Bundy movie came out starring Zac Efron. This dude is insane. I really want to know what the heck was going on in his brain, which is why I thought this would be an interesting read. This one is Anxious for Nothing. Honestly, the back does not give a good description of what this is about. To my understanding, it's just something that's supposed to help you think better about your anxiety and the causes and how to help it. And then we've got No Limits by Michael Phelps. I was a competitive swimmer for 10 years. I actually bought this the last summer that I did swim. I do wish that I actually read this when I got it. That doesn't always happen, as you can see with my 65 unread books. Then we've got Nuking the Moon, which is more of a conspiracy theory book. And while I would not consider myself a conspiracy theorist, that being said, there are a few that I 100% believe. Even though some conspiracy theories, I do think if you believe them, you're insane. I also think it's really cool to hear both sides. And lastly is The Fossil Hunter. This was a gift from my swim coach the last season I swam because I love dinosaurs and he knew that. And it's about Mary Anning, who was like the first big female paleontologist. So, Queen, very excited to read. And then we've got a few classics. First, I've got this big book. It's filled with Lewis Carroll stories. I'm not sure if I want to read all of them or just Alice in Wonderland or just leave this be as decoration on my shelf. That being said, it's not decoration on my shelf because it sits on my shelf like this, so you can't even see the spine or the pretty cover. So I will for sure at least be reading the Alice in Wonderland stories out of here. Not too sure how much of the rest I'll read though. And then we've got The Great Gatsby. I've actually never even seen the movie to this. To my understanding, actually, his wife is the one who wrote this and he just took credit for it. So I don't like you, F. Scott Fitzgerald. Then we've got Pride and Prejudice, which is another thing that I haven't even seen the movie for. Oh, don't come for me. I would love it. I know I would love it. So another thing that I honestly don't know why I haven't read it yet. There's just too many books to read in this world. And then we have Little Women. I have read part of it, but I got too busy and had to stop reading and just never came back to it. I love Greta Gerwig's Little Women so much. And I was actually in a Little Women in play. Was Beth. I really, really, really need to read this book because I love Little Women so much, and I feel like I can't say that because I haven't read the book, so I need to read it. And then we have Little Men by Louisa May Alcott, and like I said, I love Little Women, so of course, gotta read the books that go with it. And I'm gonna talk about these next few together. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Gulliver's Travels, Around the World in 80 Days, and Treasure Island. I love the Journey movies, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and then Journey to the Mysterious Island. I love those movies. All these books are mentioned in those movies. From the information you get of the books in the movies, they sound really good, and I love adventure stuff, so very excited to read those. Then we've got War of the Worlds. I watched the Tom Cruise movie, and it was not that good. I've heard that the book is significantly better. I love alien anything, alien conspiracy theories, alien movies, alien books. I love them. So I do really want to read that. Now let's get into our final genre, romance. If you've seen any of my videos, you know that I love a good hockey romance. So Canadian Boyfriend, yeah, hockey romance. Again, not sure why I haven't read this yet. If I buy a hockey romance book, I usually read it within a couple weeks of having it. I've had this for a few months now. Again, not sure why I haven't read it, but I haven't. Very excited to read this because it's a hockey romance and we love hockey romances. Then we've got Girl Abroad by Elle Kennedy. I talk about Elle Kennedy, I think, in every single one of my videos. I've also mentioned this a few times, but I did want to read it before I went to study abroad in London because that's what this girl's doing in this book. She's studying abroad in London, but I just never got around to it, so I still haven't read it. Then we've got The Striker by Anna Huang, and I will be reading this month, so we'll cut this TBR down to 64. Next up is Attached at Heart by Amelie Reese. I love the Wildflower series. This is the third book in the Wildflower series, and she will be releasing at least one more. And I'm actually going to start this book within the next couple of days. So again, we're getting that TBR down to 63. Then we've got It Happened One Summer. I read the second book to this because I didn't realize that book was the second book. I thought they were completely separate. And I'm going to be honest, that book wasn't my favorite. So that's part of the reason I really haven't read this yet, because I'm not 100% sure I like it, but I definitely want to give it a chance. Another book that I read the second one of first, The Spanish Love Deception. I read The American Roommate Experiment because I had no idea it was the second book, but I did really like that book, so I definitely think I will like this book. Again, I just haven't gotten around to reading it. And before we get into the final books, I have to start with saying, if I bought the book, I find it a waste to just give that book away without trying it. And I mentioned this in my last video. When I got into reading, I read It Ends With Us in Verity and got obsessed with Colleen Hoover, so I got a ton of her books. I haven't gotten around to all of her books, but the last few that I have tried reading from her after reading other books and then coming back, I did not like. So I'm not sure that I will like these books, but like I said, they have been purchased and I would find it a waste of money to not at least try to read them. That being said, the rest of these books are Colleen Hoover books. So first up is Too Late. To my knowledge, this is a darker romance book and I don't typically like dark romance. The darkest romances I've ever read are the Twisted series and the Kings of Sin series by Anna Huang, and I feel like those are considered mild. Then we've got Maybe Now. I did read the first book and the novella for this. I did like them, but I read them when I was first getting back into reading. So when I come back to her, so far I haven't liked her books, so I'm not sure if I will like this. Then we have Regretting You, and I honestly have no idea what this is about. I know they're making it a movie. Like I said, I got this when I just if I saw a Colleen Hoover book on a shelf, I bought it. But like I said, I have to give everything a chance. And then we've got Reminders of Him, and to my understanding, the main character has just gotten out of prison. I don't know why she was in prison, but that's the main reason I didn't read this when I got it. But like I said, everything gets a chance. And the last book on my TBR is Never Never. On the back, it says that this is a romance mystery. It's these childhood friends to lovers who one day, I guess, their memory of all their past experiences together just disappear. I'm not too sure what's up with that, but once again, if I purchased it, I have to give it a chance. Hey guys, cutting in real quick. So as I was editing, I realized that I completely forgot to add The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. So it's actually 66 books that I have on my TBR. If you go back and count, you may notice that I only showed 64 books. One book I chose not to show because of how problematic the author is. When I do read it, because if I don't, I will feel like I wasted my money. I will briefly include it in my reading wrap up, but I don't want to give her books any unnecessary attention. So I chose to keep it out of this video. So that's my entire physical TBR. Like I mentioned, 2 of these books are going to be read in March. However, there are also 2 books I will be receiving in March, which is A Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry and King of Envy by Anna Huang. So when those numbers go down to 63, they go right back up to 65. But hey, what can you do? So like I've said, my TBR is 65 books. If yours is longer, let me know so that I can feel less insane about having 65 unread books. That's all I have for you today, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe and follow my Instagram, which is linked in the description, for more bookish content. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Love you guys. Bye.